Hello and welcome to another episode of Shed Tech. Now, the keen-eyed amongst you will notice that I'm not in my shed. That's because instead of talking you through some nice shoes or other little components, I'm going to talk you through a whole bike today. And that bike is an entirely new thing from Canyon. It's called the Canyon Grizl. I think they're going for grizzly bear more than overly chewy chunk of meat with that name. It's questionable, but it's a really capable bike that sits alongside the Grail, which is a little bit racier. And this one's built for bigger days out over rougher terrain. So by adding Grizl into their lineup, that means they've got two gravel bikes, Canyon has. Why do they need to subdivide gravel? Surely a gravel bike, by definition, should span the riding spectrum. But Canyon argues that these bikes do very different things, and the Grail is for racier, longer, lower, faster riding on smoother ground, whereas this is for slower, longer, more sedate days out. And it achieves the different remit through several distinct characteristics. Now, the first one, most obviously, is tyre clearance. This thing has absolutely acres of tyre clearance. You've got 50mm tyres with 6mm clearance either side, so that's right up into mountain bike territory for 700C. 45mm tubeless tyres supplied as standard, and it really helps the bike. So why does the Grizl have all that tyre clearance? Well, Canyon thinks that a dual wheel size concept of being built around 650B and 700C doesn't work. Geometry is going to be compromised at one end of the spectrum if you do that, which is most unusual, as most gravel bikes champion a dual setup. So Canyon thinks that 700C wheels, taking inspiration from the mountain bike world, roll better, you get more momentum, and they're more capable. They're just generally faster than an equivalent width tyre in 650B. But that opens up a whole host of questions around how on earth you fit a massive 700C tyre into the frame. At the front of the bike, around the fork, it's fairly easy. They've got a really wide stance fork that's nice and reinforced. But at the back, they've made several concessions around the chainstays. One, the most notable being the drop chainstay on the drive side, and then the thin chainstay on the non-drive side. However, most sensibly, to stop those laterally skinny chainstays from undermining the potential stiffness in the frame, they've bulked up the down tube and the non-drive side chainstay to ensure everything's kept fairly rigid and efficient. So gargantuan amount of tyre clearance is one way the Grizl differentiates itself from the Grail. Another one is mounting points. This bike has got more mounting points than you can shake a stick at. They adorn the fork leg, top tube, underside of the down tube, any way you like. And this is a really nice feature, I think, because it stops you having to fit bags that just use Velcro straps, potentially scuffs up paintwork, and really sensibly, all the torque values and bolt types are printed in between the mounting points, which is great if you're in the middle of nowhere, you finally get to a shop, but you've lost a bolt, then you can replace it, which is great because finally, some frame details that are actually useful, and they're not just some weird three-letter acronym that doesn't mean anything. Differentiation number 3, if all this tyre size, all this tyre clearance, all this squish isn't enough for you, the Grizl makes use of the VCLS 2.0 CF something seat post. It's pinned low in the frame. It's a leaf spring design that flexes loads. Hang on, I'll show you how much it flexes. You'll be able to see it. Right, almost fell over. It flexes loads. It kind of feels like you have a flat tyre until you get used to it. But when you do get used to it, it's awesome and you can ride over anything and your bum's still comfy. The geometry is another thing that the Grizl differs to with the Grail. The Grail's a much longer, lower machine, whereas the Grizl is shorter and higher. I think that's definitely a good move in terms of the tougher terrain you're likely to encounter on the Grizl. Puts you much more upright in a sustainable position that offers you a lot more control and is much better for your lower back over a long period, I'd have said. The ride position is really nicely backed up with some sensible geometry and astute component choices. You've got, for a given size, wider bars, shorter stems. The wider bars and longer wheelbase help promote stability at speed, with a shorter stem and a steepish head angle gives the bike that reactivity in tight technical turns. I will say as well, Canyon's direct to consumer sales model is very good. You will not need to upgrade anything on this bike. The spec list is really solid. The final area that the Grizl differs from the Grail is in adjustability. First off, very conspicuously, it has a regular cockpit as opposed to the Grail's hover bar. It's not a component I've ever got along with, I have to say. Much prefer the adjustability and general ergonomics of a standard cockpit, so it's great to see Canyon go in that direction there. And then the adjustability continues at other areas of the frame. You can run just as easily one-by gearing if you want, if you prefer the mechanical simplicity and a little bit lighter weight perhaps. There's routing in the frame for a dropper post if you want to go for something, well, I think is an entirely unnecessary component, but that's not for here. And also at the front, there's the capacity to run a 180mm rotor if you want to take this bike onto downhill trails, or if you're exceptionally heavy. I don't know why you'd need one, but again, the option's there. The option's there, it's a good thing. Also, the Grizl Canyon has collaborated with Adventurous in the Grizl to produce some limited edition bike packing bags that are specific to the geometry of the frame and fit like gloves. As the Grizl is an entirely new platform for Canyon, as you would expect, there are a comprehensive spec list ranging from £2 right up to closer to 5. And even the paint jobs are bloody nice, I have to say, they look great. So I've talked you through all the highlights of the new design. How does it ride? Well, I've had a few nice rides on lovely gravel roads such as this. I can say where the Grail is great and minimally compromised on tarmac, this is not for there. It's a little bit slow, it's a little bit squishy, but the worse the riding surface gets, the more the Grizl comes into its own. It's truly capable and competent beyond the scope of many gravel bikes. I would say the decision to design around 700C wheels has been a good one. It's a very bold move, but it has paid off. 700C wheels offer more momentum, and generally I have found them faster over really steep technical terrain. Given my reasonably limited test time aboard this machine so far, I don't have too many firm opinions, but my overwhelming first impression of the bike is its ability to carry speed and momentum over very technical terrain. I think that does justify Canyon's rationale to stick with the 700C bigger wheel size than try and make something compatible between 650B and 700C. By going all in on the 700C bigger wheel size and bigger tyre combo, you sort of get the attributes from the mountain bike 29er world, where the wheels are big enough to literally roll over anything. And that's something that Canyon should be applauded for. So there we have it, the Canyon Grizl and all of its highlights. If you like this video, hopefully you'd like this video, it might be rubbish, but tell me in the comments below what you like about the bike, what you don't like about the bike. If you fancy a deeper dive into all the technical details, check out my article on cyclist.co.uk and look out for my full review in Cyclist magazine issue 115, which will be on shelves very shortly. Goodbye.